All right, baby. So this is going to be straight about. This is going to be a straight conversation about how me and the guys were building towards the شو اسمه. We're building towards the questionnaire, and with a bit of testings, and I'm going to tell you my plan instantly, the whole thing. So at first, like I was, I was trying to apply like the business principles that I found from like online and collecting data. And at first, I was like, if any of you were in the stages of like how this was happening. The first stage was just let's figure out what we want to write, and we have to write it in three times. So it's like we edit it until like we edit it the first time, we edit it the second time, and by the third time we edit it, we have to create a completely new thing with the last editing. Because like ultimately anytime we're editing the reasoning of why we're doing something until we actually have something solid from a reasoning's perspective. That's a different report from one side, and then basically we have to refine or finalize whatever the questions. So after the first time we actually went through the whole three three editing cycles. The second time we went through the editing cycles, we decided to actually like start making some phone calls and testing things out. So the people that are close to us wanted to give us the time, but the people that are not close to us weren't. So the best phone call with all these was about 3 minutes and 40 something seconds, whilst the worst phone call was like 4 minutes and like 50 something seconds. So these 8 questions, 9 questions that we were asking these people, even the people that were like telling us, leave us the fuck alone, like, well, we're done, we don't want to have this conversation with you guys, still managed to stay for over 3 minutes on the phone. So I thought from my perspective, like, no, okay, so that's very off. Like we're calling somebody and we're kind of like asking them a favor and we're getting to introduce ourselves to them and we're kind of getting to like build with something or like start establish something. And the first thing basically we do is take 4 hours and it doesn't 4 minutes. It doesn't matter, man. Like even if we had the best conversation ever, if they don't leave on a high note, they're gonna remember us not on a high note. And so the goal is always to kind of like establish something where we're able to kind of where we're able to the next phone call afterwards or the next meeting or the next text message we ride on that like vibe, as in like, oh Baz, oh this, oh that, oh like these guys, like we want that to actually be a thing. So the goal behind it is to like end on a high note. And so we reduced the questions, and we decided that the first question should be kind of like a setup, whereas like we're calling to say hi, checking up on you to make sure everything's cool, and we want to check what's happening. We're going to ask a few quick questions, like what's happening with the water in your area, where is your area, and thank you very much, dude. If anything, let us know. And the goal was to create something super simple where we can get as general as information as possible, so we could limit the questions we ask in the couple of like other texts. And the thought process could be like, through the questionnaire or like afterwards, we could actually like send one message at a time through WhatsApp and have the people answer us like individually and like figure something out. That'll be cute. Uh, Sorry, man, I'm thinking in code a bit. Okay. But whoever actually started a Facebook account or anything like this, if you don't fill in all the information, what do they do? Is every single time, every like 5 minutes or so, when you jump to a different page, they give you that pop up at the top. They go like, "Oh, you still have a few more things to fill up. So what about this?" And complete and make you feel that way. So I figured that'll be a good way for us to utilize WhatsApp, because if you want to ask all these questions, first establish some form of communication and then send a message. And like, one question at a time, every once in a while, eventually we have the full profile and we can do what I think I want to do. But again, like these guys are not on my side. They really don't understand what I'm trying to say, because I kept having this conversation with them over and over again. Like all they care about was asking them, how is the tank? And that limits the conversation directly. The tank is doing good. Thank you very much. Bye. Done. Whatever we call them afterwards, it's just no longer a thing they want to have. Like, we ended the conversation by limiting why we made the phone call. And so it's every single time. we actually go and have this conversation every single time we have this conversation. And whatever, every single time I approach it in a different way, and I try my best to kind of like get out of it. I try my best to engage with it differently. Uh, and I feel like every single, if I go more than 2 days without talking to them, they kind of like fade into like the darkness, and they're no longer aware of why we're doing what we're doing or the reasoning why we're doing what we're doing. But anyways, on the positive side of life, there's a whole lot of feelings involved on each side. I probably am actually experiencing something like this. And I think it's the frustration because of miscommunication, which is probably always the case. Like any issue when it comes to humanity could have been resolved with like some form of like decent communication and maybe some respect. So yeah, maybe they're the way I'm showing, maybe the way I am doesn't really like show people that this is not a disrespectful thing that I'm doing. Or maybe it doesn't show enough respect for them to feel secure with listening. I have no idea, man. It'll be a good idea to probably go visit them maybe this month or next month and check on things because I have to go and meet some like photographers and some people. Overall, our job is just beginning and the fun has yet to start. But so, anyways, we got to the point where I was having where one of the actual answers. So like I told them we need to at least make 100 phone calls, but after the 100 phone calls, we need to start working every day. We can't test anymore. So I'm limiting the scope of the actual testable time and testable phone calls. Specifically, so like every 10 of these, we actually, every 10 phone calls, we are testing something new. And I discussed with them as well, and I tried to explain to them the concept of split testing because you kind of like make the same phone calls, but you change one thing and you see which one gives you a different response. I don't know if that's stuff that's too much or that's stuff like that's just over anyone's head. But like so far we've been complying. We're at 40 people right now, and we still have 60 questions to go. So at this current moment, what we have is we have two people that kind of responded with like, "Why are you calling us? Are you from the government or something like this?" And they laughed because they got felt embarrassed when they had this phone call. But from my perspective, I wanted to find a way where I can switch it into like a no. No, if we were from the government, we probably wouldn't be calling because we won't be getting anything done. But we're calling from this company, which is reputable, and after 8 years, and we've worked with you. So after 12 years of being in the market, we've worked with you. So you better believe that we're getting something done. And I wanted to shift it in this kind of way. I don't know how successful I was with having this conversation with the guys. One guy at least understood what I'm talking about, but I really just don't. They don't see a solution. They literally anything that happens in front of them literally becomes a problem. They can't take a step back to look at a solution. They can't take a step back to look at what they can use when it comes to utility, how they can approach something. And I feel like this whole experimentation should be bringing that out of them, should be changing the way they approach things and changing the way we actually engage with it. So one of their approaches is I was thinking of something and then I was trying to split it. And here, maybe this is something like how I was like, before actually thinking of the question you want to ask, why don't you think of what do you want the customer to respond? So customer response, and then to get such a response, what is the thing that you have to target in the question? Uh, and then how the question should be in order for you to get such a response and be able to talk to it later. And then where to ask it. So ultimately, instead of thinking about the question and then testing every other possible scenario, one of my like thought process was like, well, what's the response you want? What do you want to actually? What would you have to show them in order for them to actually give you that response? And how would the question actually come out, and where would you want to ask it for it to actually make the most sense. Like I can't be talking to you about my family and then like drop in we're selling tires, right? And I can't be like discussing something about tires and then jump in and mention some random joke that takes you off topic. So there's the customer response. What show? What show you're targeting? How the question is asked to get the response, and where to ask it. Yeah, I think this is a good thing. So basically, these are the two things, like how to get something, to get info, and build a storyline from the customer. And basically, just like the reverse engineering of the actual way of how to actually understand what you want to ask them. Lately, these videos are feeling like there's a gap between like I think there's like 3, 4 minutes in between the video that kind of like are just me gathering my thoughts and then kind of like isolating them at the last 2, 3 minutes. I think it's because like my time limit, I always say it's 12 minutes. But there were the two things that I actually like reached while trying to talk to these people and trying to kind of like engage with a different way of approaching things. So I'll actually work more towards them and maybe like build some mental model, and then basically the next couple of videos I'll mention how I actually resolve them in my head and if they make sense or not, and we'll test to see if they work, which is the whole purpose of why the series exists. Yay! Thank you guys.